In the quiet suburbs of Illinois, where neighbors waved politely and families kept their lawns trimmed to perfection, there lived a woman who was the very definition of composure. Her name was Laura Bennett. To her community, Laura was the perfect hostess, always smiling, always welcoming, and always in control. But beneath the carefully arranged flowers in her kitchen, beneath the spotless floors and neatly aligned silverware, there was something else. A darkness, a silence so sharp it could cut. One night, the facade cracked. A heated argument escalated into violence, and Laura's perfect home was no longer perfect. Someone was dead, and in that chilling moment, Laura made a decision few would ever imagine. She would clean up her own crime scene. She would not call for help. She would not seek an alibi. She would erase the evidence with the same efficiency she used to polish her glassware. This is the story of a woman whose cold precision and unsettling calm left investigators stunned, and a community forever haunted. Laura Bennett's life had always been about control. Raised in a household where emotions were considered weakness, she grew up believing that order equaled safety. Everything had to be planned, predictable, perfect. Friends described her as meticulous to a fault. The kind of person who alphabetized her spice rack, vacuumed twice a day, and ironed even her bed sheets. To many, she seemed admirable. But to those closest to her, Laura's obsession with order bordered on unsettling. She married young, to a man named Daniel Carter, a kind but sometimes impulsive figure whose spontaneity clashed with her rigidity. For years, they managed. To neighbors, their marriage was solid. Behind closed doors, arguments simmered, about control, about freedom, about who they really were beneath the smiling faces. On the night of the crime, all of Laura's years of bottled emotion, of suppressed rage, would finally break free. It was a stormy night when everything changed. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolled, and the world outside seemed just as chaotic as the atmosphere inside the Bennett home. Laura and Daniel's argument had started small, about finances, about Daniel's late nights at work, about the possibility of an affair. But the words grew louder, sharper, crueler. What happened next remains debated. Did Laura snap in a moment of fury, or had she planned it all along? What is known is this: by the end of the night, Daniel lay lifeless on the living room floor. And Laura stood over him, calm, breathing evenly, her eyes scanning the scene not with panic, but with calculation. Where others might have screamed or called 911, Laura reached for her cleaning supplies. The first thing Laura did was close the curtains. She locked the doors. Then she fetched gloves, bleach, and garbage bags. For hours, she scrubbed, wiped, and rearranged her home. She worked methodically, like a professional cleaner, erasing every trace of what had just happened. The blood on the carpet, cut out and replaced. The weapon, disassembled and discarded. The timeline, adjusted with meticulous notes in her planner, as if covering up a crime was simply another chore. There was no trembling, no hesitation. Neighbors later told police they never heard a sound, not even that night, not even when the storm drowned out the truth. Laura didn't just clean. She restored order. When Daniel was reported missing by co-workers days later, Laura was prepared. She told everyone that Daniel had left unexpectedly, that their marriage had been strained, and that she assumed he had needed space. Her calm delivery fooled many. After all, wasn't she the dependable one? The kind woman who hosted holiday dinners and helped organize neighborhood events. Police questioned her, of course, but Laura's story was airtight. No panic, no cracks, no visible remorse. What no one yet realized was that while they searched for Daniel, they were walking through the very crime scene where his life had ended, scrubbed so thoroughly it looked untouched. Laura kept up appearances. She went to work. She smiled at neighbors. She attended her book club as if nothing had happened. But she wasn't careless. She planted details, mentioning arguments with Daniel, hinting at his supposed restlessness, carefully guiding suspicion away from her and toward the narrative of a man who had simply walked out. For weeks, police chased false leads, sightings of Daniel, reports of him withdrawing money, even rumors of an affair. Each one seemed plausible, each one subtly supported by Laura's calm reminders. It was as though Laura had written the script for the investigation itself. But no facade is flawless forever. Over time, tiny inconsistencies began to surface. Laura's neighbor recalled seeing her carrying heavy garbage bags late at night. A store clerk remembered her buying an unusual amount of bleach and cleaning supplies. And then, there was her demeanor. While other spouses of missing persons broke down in tears, pleaded on television, or begged for their loved one's return, Laura remained eerily composed. Too composed. Detectives began to wonder, was this grief, or something far more chilling? To understand Laura Bennett, investigators brought in criminal psychologists. What they found was startling. Laura wasn't just hiding guilt, she was detached from it altogether. Her obsession with order, her need to control her environment, had overridden the natural human response to tragedy. To Laura, Daniel's death wasn't a crime. It was a disruption. Something messy, something chaotic, something she needed to fix. And so she fixed it the only way she knew how, with bleach, gloves, and silence. The case shifted when a forensic team revisited Laura's home. This time, they looked closer, not for bloodstains, but for traces. And they found them. Tiny, almost invisible remnants beneath the carpet fibers. Microscopic evidence on the baseboards. Chemical residues that even Laura's meticulous scrubbing couldn't erase. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to prove that something violent had happened in that perfect home. Laura's mask of composure began to crack. Laura Bennett was arrested on a quiet morning. Neighbors watched in shock as police escorted her from her spotless home. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply walked calmly, her head held high, as though this too was just another task she had accepted. In interviews, detectives said she displayed cold efficiency from beginning to end. She never once expressed remorse, never once admitted guilt. To this day, many wonder, did Laura kill Daniel out of anger or out of calculation? Was she a victim of her own perfectionism, or a woman who had always been capable of erasing anything, or anyone, that disrupted her order? What do you think? Was Laura Bennett a calculating killer who always knew what she was doing, or a woman whose obsession with control pushed her into an irreversible act? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Stay with us because we're about to dive deeper into her trial, the shocking testimony, and the chilling aftermath of a woman who cleaned up her own crime scene. After her arrest, Laura Bennett sat across from detectives in the small, sterile interrogation room. Most suspects fidget. Most cry. Some beg. Not Laura. She sat upright, hands folded neatly on the table, answering questions in the same calm tone she might use to discuss grocery lists. When asked if she had harmed Daniel, she replied, "Daniel was unpredictable. He left. That's all there is." But the forensic evidence, those microscopic traces of blood and chemical residue, said otherwise. Detectives pressed harder. They described the stormy night, the neighbors' suspicions, the timeline that didn't add up. Laura didn't flinch. Her silence was louder than any denial. By now, the case had captured national attention. Headlines branded Laura as the woman without remorse and the hostess killer. News anchors repeated the same chilling detail. She had scrubbed her own crime scene. Alone. Without hesitation. Talk shows debated her psychology. Was she a narcissist? A perfectionist pushed too far? Or something darker, a sociopath hiding in plain sight? For her suburban community, it was unthinkable. This was the woman who hosted Thanksgiving dinners, who brought cookies to neighborhood events. How could she also be the woman who erased her husband's life with bleach and gloves? The public was divided. Some sympathized, suggesting Laura was a victim of emotional strain. Others saw her as cold-blooded, incapable of empathy. But soon, it wouldn't matter what the public thought. The courtroom would decide. Prosecutors faced a daunting challenge. Without a body, proving murder would be difficult. But they had something powerful, Laura's behavior. They built their case not just on forensic evidence, but on her chilling calmness, her contradictions, her refusal to grieve. They painted her as a woman obsessed with control, so obsessed that she treated her husband's death like a stain to be scrubbed away. Meanwhile, Laura's defense argued there was no direct proof Daniel was dead. They suggested he might have vanished by choice, tired of Laura's controlling ways. It became clear the trial would hinge not just on evidence, but on perception. Was Laura Bennett a grieving wife, or a meticulous killer? The courtroom was packed on the first day of the trial. Laura walked in wearing a simple black dress, her hair neatly tied back, her face expressionless. Reporters scribbled furiously, noting how she seemed composed, almost indifferent. As the prosecution laid out their timeline, jurors listened intently. They heard about the storm, the late-night purchases of bleach, the neighbors' accounts of heavy garbage bags. They saw the forensic slides, the microscopic traces left behind. When the defense countered, they painted Daniel as restless, unhappy, and capable of walking out. They called Laura misunderstood, a woman unfairly judged for her composure. But the jury couldn't ignore one haunting detail. Laura never once expressed sadness. The The most powerful moments came from the witness stand. Neighbors testified about Laura's late-night cleaning. A store clerk described her unusual purchase of supplies. And Daniel's sister, her voice trembling, told the jury how Laura never once called to ask if the family had seen him. The prosecution's most damning point was Laura's own words. In recorded interviews, her responses were chillingly detached. When asked about Daniel, she said, "He was disruptive. Things are calmer now." The jury gasped. For the first time, they glimpsed the cold efficiency beneath the mask. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated. Hours stretched into days. Finally, the verdict was read, guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom erupted, some in shock, others in relief. Daniel's family wept quietly. Laura stood motionless, her face unreadable. When asked if she had anything to say, she simply replied, "I kept my home in order. That's all." It was a statement that sent chills through everyone present. Laura was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Even behind bars, she carried her obsession with order. Guards reported that she folded her sheets with precision, kept her cell spotless, and arranged her books alphabetically. Other inmates avoided her, not because she was violent, but because she was unsettling. Her lack of remorse, her cold stares, her detached tone, it made even hardened criminals uneasy. For Laura, prison wasn't chaos. It was just another environment to control. Criminal psychologists continued to study Laura. Some labeled her a sociopath, incapable of empathy, driven only by control. Others believed she suffered from an obsessive-compulsive personality disorder pushed to extremes. But there was one conclusion they all shared: Laura's ability to clean up her own crime scene, without panic or hesitation, marked her as one of the most chilling examples of cold efficiency they had ever seen. Her crime wasn't just murder. It was erasure. Years later, Laura's old neighborhood still felt the impact. The Bennett's once spotless home stood empty for months before being sold. Neighbors admitted they avoided walking past it, haunted by the thought of what had happened inside. For them, Laura's crime wasn't just about Daniel. It was about betrayal. The friendly hostess, the perfect neighbor, had been living a double life all along. It was a reminder that evil doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes, it smiles politely, serves coffee, and keeps its floors spotless. Today, Laura Bennett remains behind bars. She has never admitted guilt. She has never apologized to Daniel's family. Her story continues to fascinate true crime followers around the world, not because of brutality, but because of what it revealed: a woman who treated a crime scene like clutter to be erased. Cold, efficient, remorseless. And so we're left with questions that may never be answered. Was Laura always capable of this darkness? Or was she a woman who broke under pressure, consumed by her own obsession with perfection? What do you think? Was Laura Bennett a calculating sociopath, or a woman driven to the edge by her obsession with control? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this case as chilling as I did, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next case we cover here on True Crime Hub. Because sometimes, the most terrifying criminals aren't strangers in the dark. They are the ones who smile at you across the street.